Introduction. You are not your job title spoken with a slow, compelling pace, building tension and curiosity, then rising into a strong emotional crescendo. Let me ask you something. When someone looks you in the eye and says, "So, what do you do?" What's your instinct? Do you shrink into a label? Do you rattle off your job title? Do you start explaining your profession, your business, your resume? Here's the truth most people never hear. The moment you answer that question with your title, you've already put yourself in a box. You've flattened your potential into a single line. You've handed over your story in exchange for a job description, and in that moment, you've just told the world what you do, but not who you are. This book, this journey you're about to take, isn't about hiding who you are. It's about unlocking something far more powerful, the ability to communicate your value without ever having to prove it. Because the most magnetic people in the world, they don't introduce themselves with a title, they don't explain their worth, they don't chase validation, they embody it, they let their energy, their presence, and their impact do the talking, long before they ever say a word. In a world obsessed with labels, scripts, and self-promotion, this is your permission to do something radically different. Don't tell them, show them, live it, be it. Over the next 10 chapters, you're going to unlearn everything you thought you knew about personal branding, networking, and communication. You'll discover how to lead with energy, not explanation, connect through curiosity, not credentials, build a reputation so strong people talk about you even when you're not in the room. This isn't a textbook. This isn't theory. This is activation. Chapter 1. The power of silence in a noisy world, spoken with deep, confident energy. Like a calm storm building with every word. Welcome to a new beginning, a different way of thinking, a way of living that doesn't scream for attention but commands it. This is not about shrinking. It's about rising without announcing it. In this chapter, you're going to feel the power of silence, intentional silence, in a world that won't stop shouting. We live in the age of the microphone. Everyone has one. Everyone's talking about what they do, who they know, how important they are. They wear their job titles like armor. Their LinkedIn bios scream for validation. But here's the truth. The loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. Why? Because true power doesn't beg to be seen. It makes its presence felt. Without saying a word, let me tell you a story. There was a man named David. He was the quiet one at every event. No flashy suit, no business cards, no long-winded introductions. In fact, you'd probably pass him at a conference and assume he was just another guest. But David owned 3 companies. He'd built an empire in logistics, invested in tech startups before they exploded, and helped rebuild communities after natural disasters. Anonymously, he never started a conversation with, "I'm a CEO," or "I run a multi-million-dollar operation." Instead, he asked people what they were passionate about. He listened, he connected, and only when someone asked, he shared just enough to spark curiosity, but never the full picture. You see, David had learned a powerful truth most people miss. If you have to tell people you're important, you probably aren't. His silence wasn't passivity. It was precision. It was presence. And because he didn't rush to label himself, people leaned in. They wondered, who is this guy? Their curiosity became his magnet. That's the power of silence in action. Now let's bring it closer to home. Think about the last time you introduced yourself. Did you lead with your job title? Your company name? Did you feel pressure to impress? We all do it. Society trains us to. From childhood, we're taught to define ourselves by what we do, not who we are. What do you want to be when you grow up? Becomes a lifelong identity trap. We become lawyers, marketers, engineers, influencers, but lose the essence underneath. And here's what that creates: noise. Noise that drowns your uniqueness in the sea of sameness. Noise that kills curiosity. A noise that makes you forget your own value beyond your profession. But when you choose silence, intentional, grounded, powerful silence, you change the game, because silence is not the absence of value. It's the proof of it. Let's go deeper. Why do the greatest warriors move in silence? Why do the most influential people often say the least in meetings, only to shift the entire room with one sentence? Because they've done the work. Their presence is earned, not performed. They don't need validation. They don't need to be understood immediately. They let their impact do the talking. You can too. Silence gives you space to observe. It gives you leverage in conversation. It forces others to bring you value, because you're not rushing to prove yours. In a world addicted to attention, being calm, being quiet, being grounded is radical. It's disruptive. It's magnetic. Now don't mistake this for hiding. This isn't about shrinking. It's about holding your power. It's about walking into a room and letting people feel your energy before they ever hear your name. Because when you carry yourself with certainty, you don't need to advertise it. Your reputation walks in before you do. Let's pause right here. Ask yourself this. What would change in my life if I stopped trying to explain myself to everyone? If I stopped giving away my story too early, if I let my results, my character, my actions speak before my resume, imagine the impact. Imagine how much stronger your connections would be. Imagine how much time you'd save, not having to prove, just to be. This chapter is your permission to shift. Stop telling people what you do. Start showing them who you are. Through your presence, your impact, your silence, because the world is watching. Not to hear you scream your title, but to feel your energy when you walk into the room. And when you master the art of strategic silence, not only do people start asking who you are, they start remembering you long after you're gone. This is the first step toward becoming unforgettable. So I ask you, will you keep trying to impress the world with noise, or will you start to influence it with quiet power? The choice is yours, and it begins. In Silent Ink Chapter 2, Why People Don't Really Care What You Do, spoken with a curious, provoking tone, drawing the listener in like a trusted mentor, breaking hard truths. Let's get real. There's a truth that might sting at first, but it will set you free. People don't really care what you do. Let that sink in. It's not that people are cold or heartless or uninterested in you as a person. It's just that in today's world, where everyone is constantly trying to sell, pitch, promote, impress, most people have become numb to introductions. Think about it. You meet someone at a party, they say, "I'm a consultant," or "I work in finance," or "I run a startup." What happens in your mind? You nod, you smile, you move on, because none of those words actually mean anything. They're labels, vague, flat, forgettable labels. Now, let me ask you something even deeper. When was the last time you introduced yourself and someone was instantly captivated? Not by your job title, but by your presence. You see, the truth is, people care about what you do for them. They care about how you make them feel. They care about what you bring to the table that impacts their world. Your job title isn't your identity. Your resume isn't your reputation. What you do doesn't define who you are. And when you understand that, really feel it, you stop playing a game designed for attention and start living a life built around authentic connection. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman named Talia. She was brilliant, Harvard educated, ran strategy for $1 billion company, but at networking events, when people asked what she did, she would just say, "I help good people build great things." That's it. Not "I'm a senior vice president of global strategy and operational alignment." Not "I work in corporate transformation." No alphabet soup of titles, just value, just a vibe. And guess what? People leaned in. They asked questions. They got curious. They wanted to know more, because Talia didn't give them a conclusion. She gave them a doorway, and that's the point. When you lead with your title, you close the door. When you lead with curiosity, you open the room. We've been conditioned to think that what we do is the most important thing about us, but let's flip that idea on its head. Imagine if you met someone and instead of saying, "I'm a real estate agent," they said, "I help families find the place where their life stories begin." Which one would you remember? Imagine if a therapist said, "I help people heal parts of themselves they've been running from for years." Imagine if a graphic designer said, "I make ideas impossible to ignore." That's the shift. That's what people care about. They don't care what you do. They care why you do it, how you do it, what it does for them. Because when you focus less on status and more on service, you become unforgettable. And you know what else happens? You stop chasing people, they start coming to you. Why? Because you're not trying to impress. You're making an impact, quietly, powerfully, meaningfully. Let me get even more honest with you. If your job title disappeared tomorrow, if LinkedIn shut down, if nobody could Google you, if all your credentials were stripped away, who would you be? Would you still know your worth? Would people still feel your value? Because that's what matters most. Your identity is not your industry. Your worth is not your work. And the people who matter, the ones who will invest in you, believe in you, collaborate with you, are the ones who see the substance beneath the surface. So here's the challenge. Stop introducing yourself by your job. Instead, lead with your mission. Lead with what drives you. Lead with the energy that makes you different. Don't just say you're a founder. Say, I wake up every day to solve a problem that keeps people up at night. Don't just say you're in marketing. Say, I help companies speak human. Let your words carry weight. Let your presence invite curiosity. Because here's what I know for sure. People remember how you made them feel, not what you called yourself. They remember the sparkle in your eyes when you talked about what you believe in, not the line on your business card. They remember the time you listened instead of pitched, the story you told that made them feel seen, the energy you brought into the room, quiet, steady, confident. So stop trying to win the room with your title. Start winning hearts with your truth, because when you do, when you speak less about what you do and more about why it matters, when you stop rushing to be understood and start living to make an impact, that's when the world starts leaning in. That's when people remember you. That's when you go from being another name in a sea of introductions to being a presence they can't forget. This is the new way. It's not louder, it's not flashier, it's real, and it's yours to claim. So next time someone asks what you do, don't tell them, show them. Chapter 3. Create intrigue, not impressions spoken with charisma and mystery, inviting the listener to lean in and reflect deeply. Let's talk about magic. Not the kind pulled from a hat, not sleight of hand or illusion, but the real magic that happens when people can't quite figure you out, and they want to. Intrigue. It's one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. And yet most people chase the opposite. They try so hard to make an impression, they forget how to make a connection. You've seen it. The person who walks into a room and immediately starts name dropping, telling you their credentials, their accolades, their 5-year plan, all in the first 2 minutes. They want to impress, but the effect is the opposite. Why? Because when you tell people everything, you give them nothing to wonder about. Here's the truth. Mystery is magnetic. Human beings are wired for curiosity. We lean in when we don't know the full story. We remember the people who gave us a glimpse, not a pitch deck. Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Ezra. He lived simply, wore plain clothes, never boasted, but wherever he went, people gathered, people listened, people wanted to be near him. Why? Because Ezra never tried to impress anyone. He asked more questions than he answered. He shared his thoughts carefully, choosing every word like it mattered. And when asked what he did for a living, he would smile and say, I connect dots most people don't see. That was it. No job title, no company name, just a line that made people go, wait, what does that mean? And that's where the magic began. Ezra knew something most people didn't. Curiosity opens doors ego never could. By not rushing to explain himself, he created space for others to lean in. They asked more questions. They became invested. They felt invited into his world, not pushed into it. And here's what's beautiful. That same power is in you. Right now, you don't need to shout your worth. You don't need to constantly explain yourself to be seen. You need to become the kind of person who invites curiosity. Because here's what happens when you do. Instead of people zoning out during your introduction, they pay attention. Instead of trying to network, you create relationships. Instead of just being remembered for what you said, You're remembered for how you made people feel. Let me ask you a question. When you walk into a room, are you trying to prove something? Or are you trying to create something? Because trying to impress is about proving. Creating intrigue is about building a bridge. One leads with ego, the other leads with depth. When you try to impress, you talk at people. When you create intrigue, you talk with them. Now, some people hear this and say, "But won't people think I'm hiding something if I don't explain myself right away?" No, not if you're grounded in your presence. Not if you carry yourself with quiet confidence. Not if you speak just enough to stir something inside them. You don't have to be mysterious by withholding the truth. You become mysterious by choosing what to reveal. Like a great book, you don't fall in love with a story because the author tells you the ending on page 1. You fall in love because each chapter gives you just enough to keep turning the page. You are that book. Start treating your conversations like chapters, not cover blurbs. Let people discover you. Let them earn the depth of who you are. Let your essence unfold rather than explode. And above all, be real. Because intrigue is not manipulation. It's not a gimmick. It's the natural byproduct of being so grounded in who you are that you no longer feel the need to explain yourself to be validated. That's what makes you magnetic. Let me give you something practical. The next time someone asks what you do, try this. Don't answer right away. Smile, pause, breathe, then say something like, "I work on things that help people live with more clarity. I build experiences that people remember. I solve problems that most people avoid." Watch their face, watch their posture shift. You've just opened a loop in their mind, and the human brain has to close loops. They'll ask, "How do you do that?" And now, instead of giving a stale pitch, you've created a conversation. You've invited connection, you've activated curiosity, you've stepped into the rare air of being truly intriguing. So here's your challenge. Stop trying to be interesting. Start being interested. Stop trying to make a splash. Start making a ripple, one that draws people in, not one that drowns them in information. Because the people who are unforgettable are not the ones who say the most. They're the ones who make you feel something. With the least, so from this moment forward, make it your mission to be discovered, not displayed. Be the quiet signal in a world of noise. Be the question mark in a room full of periods, because mystery is not weakness. It's wisdom, and the world needs less noise, and more of you, the real you. Chapter 4. Become a story, not a label spoken with warmth and conviction, as if speaking directly to the listener's soul. Let's step beyond titles now. Let's step beyond the labels we wear like armor, because today we talk about what truly endures, what truly moves people, what truly defines you, your story, not your job, not your role, not the 3-word description on your LinkedIn profile, but your journey, your experiences, your scars, your heart, your story. Because let's be honest, labels are lazy. They're shortcuts for people who don't want to dig deeper. And in a world that's drowning in bios and job descriptions, being another label is the fastest way to be forgotten. You don't want to be a label, you want to be a story, the kind that stays with people long after you've left the room. Because stories move people, stories inspire people, stories connect us in ways titles never can. Let me tell you about Michael. Michael was a product designer. That was his title. That was the box he checked. But when you asked Michael what he did, he didn't say, "I'm a designer." He said, "I used to struggle with anxiety as a kid. I never felt safe in the spaces I lived in. Now, I design digital environments that help people feel calm, focused, and in control." And just like that, he stopped being a job title and became a human being. He didn't just offer a service, he offered himself, his story, his reason, his why, and people remembered him because Michael wasn't a label. He was a journey. He wasn't just another designer. He was someone with purpose. So ask yourself, when you speak about who you are you reciting a resume or are you telling a story? Because the people who move the world forward are never just doing a job. They're living out something deeper. Something that was born in them long before their business card ever existed. Here's the mistake most people make. They try to sound impressive, but sounding impressive is surface level. Being impactful is soul level. You become impactful the moment you stop hiding behind what you do and start owning the story of why you do it. That's when people stop seeing you as just another and start seeing you as a person on a mission. Let me tell you something. People don't buy from people. They buy into people. They buy into your energy, your belief, your journey, and nothing communicates that more clearly than a story. But here's the key. Your story doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't need some jerking origin tale to be compelling. You just need to be honest. You need to be real, because authenticity is the most powerful story there is. Maybe you're a personal trainer, not because you love the gym, but because you once battled with body image and now you want to help others find strength the way you did. Maybe you're a copywriter, not because you love words, but because words once helped you express what you were too afraid to say out loud. Maybe you're a teacher, not because it's your job, but because no one believed in you growing up, and you refused to let another kid feel invisible. That's not a label, that's a life, that's you. So what's your story? Not the bullet points, not the accolades, not the highlight reel. I mean the moment you changed, the moment you knew what you were meant to do. The struggle that shaped you, the purpose that wakes you up when you're tired, the reason you can't quit, even when no one's watching, because when you own your story, people feel it. When you speak from that place, you don't have to sell yourself. People lean in, they listen, they remember. Your story is your brand. Your story is your legacy. Your story is what makes you human in a world obsessed with performance. So stop reducing yourself to a label. You're not just anything. You're a collection of moments, lessons, breakthroughs, and battles won in silence. And those stories, your stories, are worth sharing. Now let's take it one step further. The more you lead with your story, the more you'll inspire others to share theirs. And that's where real relationships begin, because connection doesn't live in what you do. It lives in what you've been through. When you become a story, you give others permission to drop their walls, to speak from their hearts, to meet you at a human level, not a transactional one. That's how you build trust. That's how you build loyalty. That's how you become unforgettable. So here's what I want you to do tonight, or the next quiet moment you have. Sit down and write your story. Not your resume, not your pitch, your story, where you started, what shaped you, why you care, what you believe in, and what you're fighting for now, because when you lead with that, when you live from that, the world doesn't just see what you do, they see who you are, and once they see that, you're no longer a label, you're a story worth following. Chapter 5, Master the Pause. Let silence do the talking, spoken with calm confidence, measured, thoughtful, inviting listeners into a deeper awareness in a world that never stops talking. Silence has become rare, and because it's rare, it has become powerful. We live in an age of noise. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to speak louder, faster, more often. Social media, meetings, podcasts, pitches, updates. We're always filling the air. But what if I told you that your power doesn't come from what you say? It comes from what you don't say, that your true influence might be hiding in your pause. Let that sink in, because we've been taught that to lead, we must speak. That to win, we must persuade. That to impress, we must perform. But silence, real, intentional, grounded silence, can say more than any words ever could. It can stop a room. It can make someone feel instead of just hear. It can turn a moment into a memory. Let me take you to a boardroom I once sat in. There was a young woman, Sarah, soft-spoken, observant. She wasn't the first to speak in the meeting, or the second, or even the third. While others fought for airtime, she waited, she listened, and then, when the room got quiet, when everyone had run out of breath, Sarah leaned in. She said just 2 sentences, that's it. But the entire room fell silent. Because she had waited, she had listened, she had absorbed, and when she finally spoke, every word carried weight. That's the power of the pause. You see, people are addicted to filling space, but the real masters, the truly magnetic individuals, understand that space is where impact lives. The pause is not empty, it's loaded, it's filled with intention, it's filled with presence, it's filled with meaning, because the pause does something incredible. It creates tension, not anxiety, but emotional gravity. It makes people lean in instead of check out. It makes them pay attention. It makes them feel the value of your presence, not just the volume of your voice. And here's the secret. When you pause, you communicate one thing above all else: confidence. And not arrogance, not bravado, but deep, embodied self-trust. You're not afraid of silence, because you don't need to prove anything, because you trust that what you say will land. Let me say this clearly. Insecure people over-explain. Confident people pause, because they know that the pause isn't a void, it's a frame that makes your message resonate, a frame that turns a sentence into a statement, a frame that gives people space to feel what you're saying, not just hear it. Now let's bring this closer to home. Think about your last conversation. Were you listening, or were you waiting to speak? Were you rushing to fill silence with facts and opinions, or were you sitting in it, allowing the space to breathe? Because presence doesn't live in how quickly you speak. It lives in how deeply you listen. It lives in how comfortable you are in the pause. The greatest communicators in the world, Barack Obama, Brené Brown, Maya Angelou, they all had one thing in common. They were never in a rush. They gave every word room to stand, every thought space to land, and every moment a chance to connect. Here's something even more powerful. The pause isn't just for public speaking. It's for life. It's the moment you take before you respond in anger, the breath you draw before you make a decision, the quiet you sit in before you speak your truth. The pause is where clarity lives. It's where alignment is born. It's where your soul gets a chance to lead your voice. So I want to challenge you. The next time you're in a conversation, pause. The next time you feel the urge to prove something, pause. The next time someone asks you what you do, pause, smile, breathe, and then speak, not from urgency, not from pressure, but from intention, because the pause isn't silence, it's command, it's clarity. It's power. In the pause, people feel your presence. In the pause, people lean into your energy. In the pause, you become unforgettable. So here's your practice. Start embracing space. Don't rush to speak. Let your words travel through the room like music, not noise. Speak slowly, speak deeply. Speak when it matters, and in between, pause. Let silence do the talking, because sometimes the loudest message you'll ever deliver is the one you didn't say. Chapter 6. Speak in outcomes, not occupations, spoken with energy, clarity, and an urgent call to action. Meant to shake the listener out of autopilot. Let me ask you something. When someone asks what you do, what do you say? Do you say, I'm a coach, I'm in marketing, I'm a consultant, I'm an engineer, an artist, a freelancer? Now let me tell you what happens the moment those words leave your mouth. The person listening puts you in a box. Not because they're rude, not because they don't care, but because that's how the human brain works. It categorizes quickly. When you say your occupation, they stop listening. They think they already know you. They think they've heard your story before, and just like that, you've become forgettable. But what if I told you there's a better way, a way to not just introduce yourself, but to ignite curiosity, to communicate your value, not your title? Because here's the truth. People don't care what you do. They care what you do for them. They care about the outcome you create. Let me give you an example. There's a woman named Jenna. She's a graphic designer by trade, but when she introduces herself, she doesn't say, I'm a designer. She says, I help businesses turn bland ideas into visuals people can't ignore. Now that gets attention. Why? Because she's not just talking about her job. She's talking about her impact. And when you lead with outcomes instead of occupations, people lean in, because outcomes speak to emotion. Outcomes speak to results. Outcomes speak to the deepest question everyone is silently asking. What can you do for me? Think about it. When you go to a car dealership, you're not there for a car. You're there for the freedom, the status, the mobility that car gives you. When you go to a gym, you're not buying access to equipment. You're buying confidence. You're buying energy. You're buying a better version of yourself. So why would you describe your career any differently? You're not a writer. You help people bring their message to life. You're not a financial advisor. You help people sleep at night knowing their future is safe. You're not a therapist. You help people find peace and clarity in the chaos of life. You see the shift. You go from what I do to what I make possible. That's how you become unforgettable. Here's another story. Derek was a software developer. Every networking event, he introduced himself as one. And every time the response was the same, a polite nod, a smile, and a quick change of subject. Then one day he tried something different. When someone asked what he did, he said, "I build systems that give people their time back." That was it. No jargon, no resume, just an outcome. Suddenly, people leaned in. Wait, how do you do that? What kind of systems? Who do you work with? The conversation changed, the connection deepened, and Derek realized something life-changing. Your job is not what makes you valuable. Your outcome is. So here's the challenge. Stop describing yourself in terms of what your industry calls you. Start describing yourself in terms of what you solve. When someone asks what you do, don't just recite your job title like a robot. Don't go on autopilot. Don't speak to impress. Speak to connect. Say what you make possible. Say what transforms in someone's life or business because of you. Because when you speak in outcomes, people don't just hear you. They feel you, they see themselves in your story, and when that happens, you've earned something rare, trust. Trust is not given for credentials. It's not earned with titles. It's built through connection. And nothing builds connection faster than helping someone see what's possible. So let's get practical. Here are a few sentence starters to help you shift from occupation to outcome. I help people who feel stuck finally take action. I work with teams who are drowning in data and help them get clarity. I show people how to stop chasing and start attracting what they want. I create tools that make complex problems feel simple. I turn scattered businesses into smooth, running machines. Notice the difference. It's not about you, it's about what happens because of you. That's what people remember. That's what builds relationships. That's what gets referrals, opportunities, invitations. So the next time someone asks, "What do you do?" don't answer with your title. Don't answer with your resume. Answer with your purpose, because the most powerful introductions don't come from job descriptions. They come from transformation stories. And here's the best part. You don't have to change your job to speak like this. You just have to change your language, speak in outcomes, because your impact is too big to fit inside a job title. Chapter 7. Be the mirror, not the megaphone, spoken with empathy, warmth, and a sense of powerful calm. Like a trusted friend sharing a transformative truth, let me tell you something most people never learn in their careers, in their relationships, or even in their lives. You don't win influence by being the loudest voice in the room. You win it by being the clearest mirror. You see, most people walk into a conversation trying to broadcast. They're busy trying to prove something. To be heard, to be respected, to be admired. So they talk and talk and talk. They use buzzwords, they drop credentials, they showcase success like it's currency, and in all that noise, they miss the one thing that actually builds trust, connection, and loyalty. They miss presence. They miss the opportunity to do something far more powerful than talking. They miss the opportunity to reflect. Let me explain. Think back to a time when someone made you feel truly seen. Not just heard, but understood. You walked away from the conversation lighter, clearer, maybe even changed. That person wasn't a megaphone. They didn't try to sell you something. They didn't try to fix you. They listened, they asked the right questions, they gave you space. They held up a mirror to your own greatness, your own confusion, your own truth. And in that moment they became unforgettable, not because they spoke powerfully, but because they saw you clearly. That's what being a mirror means. And in a world where everyone is yelling to be noticed, the mirror stands still and reflects back something far more rare, understanding. It's counterintuitive, I know. We're taught that to stand out, we have to shout louder, But the people who truly change us, mentors, leaders, partners, friends, don't dominate the room. They tune in, they reflect who we are, they see what we miss. And when you do that for others, you become magnetic. Let me tell you about Ayesha. She was a life coach. Nothing flashy about her branding, no viral videos, no motivational slogans, but her client list. Waitlisted for months. Why? Because every person who spoke to her walked away feeling like they had just met themselves for the first time. She wasn't trying to impress. She wasn't pitching or performing. She was listening deeply, holding space, and asking questions that mattered. That's what it means to be a mirror. People don't need more experts. They need more witnesses. They need someone to look at them, not through a lens of judgment, but through a lens of belief. You don't need to be the hero in every room. You just need to be the one who sees the hero in someone else. And here's what's wild. The more you reflect others, the more powerful your own voice becomes. Because people don't remember what you said. They remember how they felt when they were around you. And if they felt seen, felt known, felt elevated, they'll come back, they'll follow you, they'll trust you with their story, their struggles, their dreams. That's influence, that's leadership, that's how impact really works. But here's the truth, being a mirror isn't easy. It takes restraint, it takes humility, it takes the willingness to stop performing and start connecting. You have to put down the megaphone, the need to be right, the need to be admired, the need to impress, and instead choose to be present. You have to ask questions like, what's really going on here? What matters most to this person? How can I help them see themselves more clearly right now? Because when you do, you unlock something far more powerful than approval. You unlock trust, and trust is the currency of all real success, in business, in relationships, in life. So the next time you're in a room, remember this. You don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to be the loudest. You don't have to be the most charismatic. You just have to pay attention. You have to be so present, so grounded, so curious, that people walk away from you feeling more connected to themselves. That's the mark of a true communicator, not how well you speak, but how deeply you listen, not how loud your message is, but how accurate your reflection is. The mirror doesn't scream, it doesn't perform. It doesn't need attention, it just shows the truth, and in a noisy world, that's what people are starving for. So today, I want to challenge you when you meet someone. Pause, don't reach for your pitch. Don't rush to prove your value, be still, be curious, be a mirror, ask a better question, hold their story with care, see who they are beneath the surface, and reflect it back with love and clarity, because the most powerful people are not those who speak the most, but those who make others feel seen the most. Be that person, be the mirror, not the megaphone. Chapter 8. Your energy is your elevator pitch, spoken with high energy and emotional intensity. Each sentence designed to ignite self-awareness and confidence. Let's cut to the truth. You are always making an impression, whether you speak or not. Before you say a word, before you introduce yourself, before you explain who you are and what you do, people feel you, they feel your presence, they feel your vibe, they feel your energy, and here's the punchline, your energy is your real elevator pitch. Not your 30-second rehearsed blurb, not your job title, not the clever line you've practiced in the mirror. It's your energy, the unspoken transmission that tells people whether they want to lean in or walk away. You know what I'm talking about. There are people who walk into a room and shift the atmosphere without even saying hello. They radiate certainty, calm, passion, positivity. You can't quite explain it, but you feel it. And then there are people who walk in with a resume, a pitch, a script, and somehow it all falls flat because their energy is off. It's not about volume. It's not about how much you speak or how clever your words are. It's about alignment, when your energy matches your truth, when who you are lines up with what you say. People can feel it. That's when trust is built instantly. That's when doors open without you having to knock. That's when people say, I don't know what it is about you, but I want to work with you. Let me tell you about Marcus. He used to obsess over his elevator pitch. He rewrote it 15 times, practiced it in front of the mirror. He even asked AI to help him refine it. Ironic, I know, but when he'd go to networking events, nothing clicked. People listened, smiled politely, and moved on. Then one day, his mentor said something that changed everything. It's not your words, it's your energy. You're trying to convince, you need to transmit. Boom, he stopped performing, he started aligning. He stopped trying to impress, and started just being the version of himself that felt most true, and the shift was instant. Suddenly, people felt drawn to him, not because of a new pitch, but because his energy was clean. Confident, grounded, present, he didn't have to explain his value anymore, he embodied it. Here's what I want you to understand. Energy is not about hype. It's not about being loud or on all the time. It's about clarity. It's about intentionality. It's about truth. When you walk into a room, ask yourself, am I grounded in who I am? Am I clear on what I bring to the table? Am I radiating trust, purpose, and enthusiasm? Because that's what people buy into, not your qualifications, not your stats, not your rehearsed pitch. They buy your state. They buy the feeling of being around you. If you're anxious, people feel it. If you're overcompensating, they sense it. If you're confident, passionate, and relaxed, they breathe easier just by standing near you. So what's your responsibility? To manage your state before you manage your script. Before any meeting, any call, any intro, don't just rehearse your words. Rehearse your energy. Stand tall. Breathe deep. Remember your purpose. Feel into the value you bring. Step into your worth like it's already accepted. Because when you show up charged, authentic, focused, energized, people take notice. They might not even remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel, and that's everything. Let me give you a practical tool. Before you walk into any important interaction, ask yourself this: what energy do I want to transmit right now? Do I want to be calm, bold, supportive, magnetic? Then embody that. Don't fake it, feel it, visualize it, breathe it in. Let it sit in your posture, your eye contact, your presence. Because when your energy aligns with your intention, your message doesn't just reach ears, it reaches hearts. And here's the most beautiful part. Your energy isn't something you need to earn. It's something you already have. It's who you are when you stop hiding. It's what comes out when you stop shrinking. It's your truth, unfiltered. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to turn up the volume on the version of you that's already ready. So, here's your challenge. Before you worry about what to say, tune into how you feel. Before you perfect your pitch, perfect your presence. Before you try to sell your value, radiate it, because at the end of the day, your energy is the conversation happening before your words ever begin. Make sure it says something powerful. Make sure it says, I know who I am, I believe in what I do, and I'm here to create impact. That's your real elevator pitch, no script required. Chapter 9. Let curiosity lead the conversation, spoken with a gentle but compelling rhythm. The voice of a wise friend who's helping you rediscover a powerful truth you've always known deep down. Have you ever noticed something? The most unforgettable conversations you've had in your life probably weren't the ones where someone wowed you with facts, credentials, or flawless logic. They were the ones where you felt, seen, heard, understood, and not because the other person had the perfect words, but because they asked the right questions, because they were curious about you. That's the power of curiosity. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's magnetic. And in a world where most people talk to be interesting, the ones who stand out are the ones who choose to be interested. That's the shift. We've been taught that if we want to impress people, clients, investors, audiences, even friends, we need to talk better. Talk more, sell ourselves, pitch hard, win attention. But here's what the truly great communicators understand. Connection isn't built by dominating the conversation. It's built by deepening it. And you deepen conversations through curiosity. Let me give you an example. Imagine walking into a networking event and you meet two people. The first launches into a perfectly scripted intro. I'm a business strategist with 10 years of experience helping companies scale through innovative frameworks and dated, driven insights. Cool. But 5 seconds later, you've already forgotten their name. Now the second person says, "What's something you've worked on recently that made you proud?" Boom, your brain lights up, your walls drop. You go from small talk to real talk in one question, and that's the secret. Curiosity opens doors that confidence alone can't. Because when someone is curious about you, you feel safe, you feel valued. You want to engage, you want to share, you lean in, and that's when the magic happens. Let me tell you about Raj. He used to struggle in sales, he knew his product, he had a killer pitch, but somehow prospects just weren't buying. Until one day he flipped the script. Instead of pitching, he started every meeting with one question. What's the biggest frustration you're dealing with right now? And then he shut up, he listened. He took notes, he asked follow-ups, he got curious, and guess what? His sales exploded because people didn't feel sold to, they felt understood. That's what curiosity does. It dissolves resistance. It creates connection. It earns trust, and trust is everything. But curiosity isn't just a tactic. It's a mindset. It's a way of moving through the world where you assume you don't know everything, where you stop trying to be the smartest person in the room and start trying to be the most present person in the room. And the beautiful thing is, everyone has something worth discovering. Everyone is carrying a story, a struggle, a breakthrough waiting to be seen. And when you lead with curiosity, you become the person who unlocks that. You become the person people remember, not because you impressed them, but because you heard them in a way no one else has. Here's what curiosity sounds like. What's something you're working on that excites you right now? What's been challenging for you lately? If you could change one thing about your work, what would it be? How did you get into this field? What lights you up outside of work? And here's the key, ask and then actually listen. Don't just wait for your turn to talk. Don't mentally prep your reply while they're still speaking. Drop into the moment. Let your curiosity guide the conversation, not your agenda, because here's the paradox. The less you try to prove your worth, and the more you try to understand others, the more they see your value. People don't remember slick lines. They remember how you made them feel about themselves. And curiosity makes people feel important. It says, you matter. Your story is worth hearing. I'm not here to sell. I'm here to see you. And that's unforgettable. So here's your challenge. Start replacing performance with presence. Trade cleverness for curiosity. Let go of your script and lean into the moment. At your next meeting, your next date, your next call, try this, say less. Ask more. Be genuinely fascinated by the person in front of you. Let your curiosity become your superpower, because the greatest gift you can offer someone is your interest, not your knowledge, not your status, not your elevator pitch, your interest, because in a noisy world where everyone is trying to be seen, be the one who sees. That's the real influence. That's the real magic. Let curiosity lead and watch what opens. Chapter 10. Be so good they talk about you when you're not in the room, spoken with high energy, conviction, and emotion. Like the closing moments of a life-changing keynote. Let me ask you a question. When you're not in the room, when your name comes up in a meeting, a message thread, a conversation between decision makers, what do people say? What's the echo of your presence when you're not present? Because here's the truth that most people miss. Your real brand isn't built when you show up. It's built in what people say about you after you've left. It's not your website, not your pitch deck, not your business card. It's the feeling you leave behind, the reputation you earn through consistency, integrity, excellence, and above all, how you made people feel. The most powerful people in the world aren't in every room, but their name is, their impact is, their energy still lingers. That's the kind of legacy you want to build. Not one that demands attention, but one that commands respect, not through noise, but through undeniable excellence. Be so good, be so real, be so reliable, so resourceful, so radically authentic, that people can't help but talk about you when you're not around. Not because you asked them to, not because you begged for referrals, but because your work speaks for itself, because your energy made an impression, because your curiosity made someone feel seen. because your consistency built trust. Because your character stood out in a sea of copy-paste personalities. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, a young woman named Naomi was working at a startup no one had heard of. She wasn't in a leadership role. She didn't have fancy titles or connections, but every room she walked into, she lit it up. She didn't just complete tasks, she elevated the people around her. She didn't just take feedback, she asked better questions. She didn't just deliver, she over-delivered, quietly, humbly, consistently. She never tried to be the center of attention, but her name, it kept showing up in rooms she'd never even been invited into. Eventually, the CEO of a major company called her up personally and said, "3 different people told me you need to talk to Naomi." That's all I needed to hear. That's the game. That's the difference between being visible and being legendary. You don't need a spotlight. You need substance. You don't need to post every move you make. You need to move differently, in a way that people feel, remember, and talk about. So how do you do that? Start by living your values out loud, even when no one's watching. Let your work ethic speak volumes before your resume even arrives. Let your integrity show up in the details. Showing up early, following through, saying thank you, doing the right thing even when it's hard. Let your kindness be so consistent that people associate your name with safety, strength, and trust. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being undeniable. So many people spend their energy trying to get into the right rooms. But here's the truth. If you become excellent enough, the rooms start calling you. The conversations happen without your presence. The recommendations get passed around behind the scenes. The doors swing open, not because you knocked, but because you built reputation equity over time. You showed up when it wasn't convenient. You delivered when no one else did. You stayed gracious in rooms full of ego. You stayed grounded in moments of chaos. And that's the kind of greatness no algorithm, no viral moment, no marketing strategy can fake. Because what people say about you when you're not in the room, that's earned, that's real, that's your legacy in motion. So here's the final challenge of this journey. Stop trying to prove yourself in every moment. Start becoming the kind of person people trust when you're not there. Be the name that sparks confidence. Be the presence that people feel even in your absence. Be the story that gets told because it meant something. If you lead with integrity, if you live with purpose, if you pursue mastery not for applause, but because excellence is your standard, you won't need to promote yourself constantly. People will do it for you. And when they say your name, they won't just talk about what you did. They'll talk about who you are. So be unforgettable, not loud, not perfect, but undeniably good. Be so good they talk about you when you're not in the room. And watch the world open up in ways you never imagined. You're not just building a brand, you're building a legacy. Now go live it.